Welcome to Film is
Where
Real.
we film real and film reels us. I am JT.
And I'm Colton.
And I'm Zach.
And today we're going to be talking about balancing life and career. Let's roll the song.
Let's roll the
Roll.
roll.
I am Autobot.
Roll.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic you probably don't hear about very often in the filmmaking community, or at least by any, big people in the film community. But it's actually an interesting topic that I've been thinking about, especially in some recent conversations I've had with JT. JT works at Best Buy right now, and, I think it was an interesting topic because we've been kind of going back and forth on balancing, work while I'm currently trying to go full time into content creation. If you remember that conversation, I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit on how it's been working.
Yeah. I would say generally speaking, it's kind of like walking a tightrope. Like you kind of want to lean towards your work side enough to be productive, but also we're going to separate this. One side is kind of the things that you want to do, your passion and also just hobbies and friendships. And your other side is making money. I feel like they're two separate sides to me. And so especially as somebody who's young, because especially from our perspective, we're people who work in film, we need money to work, to do the things we want to do. It's money directly affects our passion. And so essentially you have to find this happy tightrope balance of, hey, I'm doing the things that I want to do. And, mental health and all that stuff is also going to go into it kind of, but you want to do the stuff that you want to do and also kind of have a life while also, getting a source of money and income from somewhere. And that's where me and Colton ended up having this conversation, because I have been working a part-time job this summer at Best Buy as a salesman, because we're moving in 2 or 3 months.
Yep.
And we need the money for that, and to hopefully be able to afford some stuff that will help our productivity within that apartment. And so I've been working basically every single day of the week, and Colton we're practically on opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Because Colton is in the position where he can still get some income and also do his passion and do something productive constantly, and also, things that he enjoys, while I am making more money and I don't really have the time to do the things that I'm wanting to do. So it's a really good discussion to have on how to really set yourself up to succeed on both sides of that.
Yeah, I think that's why I ended up thinking about it quite a bit, because transitioning from the end of our first year of college into summer, that was a huge weight on my brain of, okay, I want to make some income, but I'm in a particular situation where I feel like I have an opportunity to try and make what we do, the podcast, YouTube, Twitch, and this content creation basically, as a full-time job. And honestly, even if you are just a filmmaker, someone I recommend watching, and I'm pretty sure these guys could advocate for him too, is Harris Heller. And the reason why I recommend Harris Heller, even if you're not a Twitch streamer, is because he gives really good business advice for just content creators in general.
Yeah.
You can take his advice and apply it to basically YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, filmmaking. You can apply it. It's very applicable to all those platforms. And basically, what I learned through him was you really have to treat your passion, your art, as a business. That is the harsh reality of it. And as soon as you start treating it like a business and treating it like a full-time job, not like you're sitting and playing video games all day because you like it, there's a part of it that you almost have to not enjoy in order to make it work. And I know that sounds weird, but that's kind of the way that it helped me form my decision this summer to not to get a part-time job, in terms of just working at some random grocery store or whatever. Because I was like, okay, I have 3 months before I will have to do that probably. Might as well try and make these 3 months count and take the opportunity I can to make this work.
Right.
So that was kind of where my decision came from. But Zach, you're in a very different position right now. I know you're looking for a job kind of right now.
Yeah.
But what is your kind of thought process into that whole discussion?
I mean, in terms of in terms of work-life balance, it's really because for me, it's just been school, right? Like I have been. I mean, because I just graduated high school this weekend, and kind of just sort of been balancing, this podcast and balancing all of the other things. It's sort of just like, I think my biggest tool for success in terms of like trying and not getting overwhelmed by all of the work was trying to merge my work, right? Like I tried to, like what I did with I took this podcast, the episode that we did for the episode 3, I'd used that for my final project in LA. Like that was, and I'm like, well, I'm working on this already. And I talked to my teacher and I'm like, I'm already doing this. It's already sort of to our criteria of the project. I'm going to go ahead and use this. And I did the same with, I think there was a different, an essay I had to do, like a personal essay. I wrote about our films because I'm like just kind of self-reflection sort of thing. It's just trying to, it's like schoolwork especially is so monotonous, trying to use the work that you're already doing to your advantage in any way you can. Like I think you did some, if I remember correctly, you used like screenwriting for some of your assignments at many times. Yeah.
That was a great point, really quick, is that like taking something from school or for your daily life and applying it to what you're like doing outside of that, like career wise. Like, yeah, I've done that all the time. Like I would submit scripts as assignments or portions. I would write a portion of like an idea in like a novel format from a script. I would do that all the time. And sometimes I would even submit films. Like I'm pretty sure I submitted some film as a project at one point.
I mean, I was going to say, like, taking it back to, like, using your passion or, like, your work as, like, a business or thinking of it as a business. I think doing that in schoolwork is a good way to practice that. Because, like, in reality, like, your entire young life is essentially training you to be a businessman, like, to be a business person and be able to essentially train you for an office job, let's be real.
Yeah.
And so if you can somehow connect the two, I think that's a good direction to go to eventually get to where you're wanting to be, in my opinion.
Because I will say school life is pretty difficult.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, I mean, compared to, I mean, if you talk to like our parents or like even older siblings sometimes, like homework and things like that were nowhere near as heavy as they are today.
No, it is brutal.
And it is legitimately like, if you are trying to be a 4.0 student, it is competitive as all hell because you have to, I mean, you can look at videos about this. Like there are videos on how to be a competitive student and almost all of them are saying you have to be willing to give up your entire life to do it.
And I just find that crazy. Like, especially for us where our passions came from the film, like we've been doing films for 6 years. World Alone was 6 years ago.
Yep.
When we really started like getting into short films, and honestly, doing that took a toll on school, and it took a toll on like our ability to do school. But otherwise, we wouldn't be in the position we were in.
Yeah.
Like think about it. We didn't get you didn't get into SCAD because of your grades. You got into it because of your work.
Yeah.
And it's really that balance of like how much. It just especially for what you are going into, because you can get a 4.0 and do other stuff. I'm not saying you can't.
Yeah.
But it is especially for, creative minded people. I feel like especially is really you have to throw your focus into one thing while still maintaining something in school.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like that tightrope balance, but for school instead of making money.
It's super tough. And it's one of those things that to be honest, I mean, I can recommend what it takes, but I don't know if I would recommend doing it.
Yeah.
Because
it's a risk.
It is a risk.
It takes a
and
mental toll.
you have to basically, the way I did it throughout high school is because I knew I had pretty good grades, but that was hard. Like it was hard maintaining decent grades. No way I could have gone a 4.0. That was mentally and physically impossible while doing film with the way we were doing it.
Yeah.
But each project in each time period of me doing a project was honestly pretty calculated. I would sit down and go, okay, this is how much time it's going to take me to do pre-production, then production, and I would time it to where it would correlate with different parts of my life that were easier or better. And honestly, while I was doing a film, my grades would plummet. So I would have to be like, this is a point in my life where probably my grades don't matter a whole lot right now, which is still a risk.
Yes.
So I'd be like, okay, during finals, probably not going to shoot a short film. But like right after finals, for that last 3 weeks of school, when we're right done and there's nothing else going on, I planned it. I planned one of my first short films right after finals, the day after finals. And like that's what the whole balancing act, like JT said, is you really have to evaluate, what you're capable of doing and your stress level.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, to be completely honest, this is really a personal thing. Like, nobody's going to be able to tell you how much of this you should be doing and how much of this you should be doing. It's going to depend on your situation. Like my current situation, I know how much money I'm going to need when we move in. So I am looking and knowing that I'm going to try to make that amount of money by the time we get there. And that's why I'm having to work so much, because I know how much I need. And so for other people, they might not need as much. They might need more. And so they'll have to dedicate more towards that money end, or so on and so forth. For school, say, some people are better and some people are worse at school, just generally speaking. Like I'm not very good at school, even when I put all my time into it.
Yeah.
Like it's going to come down to kind of figuring yourself out and trying to be as self-aware as possible, because you're going to have to find that happy balance for yourself. Nobody's going to be able to really tell you what that balance is, just because it's so different per person.
Yeah. That's a huge point to make. Cause like, again, I mean, I talk about this with you guys all the time. Like, I do take on a lot of different things, and I definitely, my mindset on me taking on a lot of these stress level things is like, I know my limits. I know where I'm at. And the reason I knew where I was at is because I've tested those limits a lot throughout high school. Like high school was kind of my playground of like, okay, how much can I take at one time?
I mean, I think we all did that to a point.
Yeah. And like you again, all about balance. You have to test yourself, see how far you can go. And then eventually you're going to get to a point where you see where you can go. And you're gonna be like, okay, this is my cap. Okay. And now throughout the next portion of my life, high school, I can take the time necessary to do what I love. I wouldn't focus so much on making it a business. I know we said that earlier, but in high school specifically, I wouldn't quite do that. I would really just focus on creating.
Yeah.
Like just create.
I think the point you like are making towards a business is really, once you like, that's where you're leading up to. Like in high school, that's the thing, is like we honestly tried to early on. We were trying to turn the Griff into a brand, into like a group that was, very business minded, and it failed because we just, we didn't have the experience. We didn't have the commitment to the idea. There's a lot of things we just weren't ready for. And when we took a step back and just kind of went back to our roots and just made films and just kind of didn't worry about that, but also understood where we were going, because it helped a lot to just kind of keep that creative mind going, and keep that, like, just keep making. Once we got up to once we come up to today, where we are now, getting ready to go to college and to go actually really take this seriously and make this a profession, like our professional careers, we kind of have the backbone to, like, all right, it is still going to take a lot of work to get to that point, but we have more of like a backbone where we can start saying, okay, I can now, we can now take this all of this work we've done and really push it towards, okay, let's make ourselves kind of like an entity, like film is real. We're making this into a group and our own individual brands, and what we have done up until this point has kind of just prepared that for when we really need to do it in college, and when we need to start our careers.
That's what whenever you started talking about it, I was immediately like, something that I think is important to note is whenever you're in high school, like obviously I think try to think of yourself as a business as much as possible, or lead up to it in a way. But I think something that's important is with the time commitment that high school puts on a person, I think it's good just to practice the philosophies of like a business standpoint. So like, for example, as Zach said, we had tried to make ourselves a brand and things like that. And when it failed, we weren't really like, shit, this sucks. We were like, that was great practice.
Yeah.
Like we know a lot of things that we should and shouldn't do because of that. And I think that's a good point to make of whatever you're trying or wanting to eventually do. I mean, it's going to be trial and error because like, especially in content creation or, whatever, sound design, I mean, anything like that, like music or even just videos or film. I feel like all of that stuff kind of ties into, depending on your unique content, you're going to have to kind of brand yourself in your own way. And I think trying and practicing the different ways that you can do that and the brainstorming that can kind of come out of that, I think is really what high schoolers should be focusing on.
100%.
And it's just, you keep trying and don't take failure, like don't give up at failure.
Yeah.
You get started at failure.
Yeah,
I think
that's your notes. That's your notepad. For the next time.
Exactly.
It is 100% your notepad. Like again, like I said, it's you keep on creating things, not just films. You keep on trying different things within
expand
that.
yourself.
Yeah, like I tried different types of videos. I tried different types of films. I tried the group, the Griff. I tried different fundraisers, TikTok. Like I've tried so many different things, and we've all tried things together in so many different ways. So we've gathered that experience to the point now where it is becoming our career.
Yeah.
It is no longer about school, and that's the difference at this point.
Also to keep in mind, like all of those things that we tried, a lot of them aren't around anymore. A lot of them have, we've realized we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But the things that worked, we're doing. Like this podcast, we really liked how we did it, and we really liked how it worked. So we're going to keep doing it. The films, we're going to keep doing those because those are our drive. Those are our main passion.
Yep.
And streaming, that's something where it's like, you found success in it and you're going to try taking it in a new direction, but you're going to keep going. But some of the other things you just dropped because they don't work.
Everything in content is an investment.
Yes.
That is the best way I think I would put this, is the podcast, the streaming, like the things that we're doing, we found what we like and we are comparing ourselves to like other people that have succeeded. And we're going, one, do we actually want to do this? And two, could it also be successful at the same time? Because obviously like the more productive we can be, the better. And it's also just good practice and things like that. But I think those are like the two biggest points you have to look at is, are you willing to put into work? Like, do you actually like to do it? And also, can it grow? Like, those are the two biggest things I think people need to focus on. And I think that's why we've locked into like podcasts are very popular formats. Like they're also just entertaining for us to listen to. Like we all like our own podcasts. Like I listen to D&D stuff, you watch film stuff, things like that. And it's just like really kind of taking something that exists and trying to turn it into your own in a way that you enjoy.
That's such a huge point. You have to enjoy it. You have to know that this is what you want to do with whatever type of content, or honestly in life. This is kind of just a life thing. You try different things in high school, outside of school, and you keep on trying stuff. Like what I did is I just kind of I would try something for like a month, and then by the end of the month, like I would usually get a good idea of like, okay, did I really enjoy that?
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to just keep trying things throughout high school, and you want to keep experimenting with those different things that you not sure if you will enjoy or not. The point I'm trying to get to in this is that right now I am trying to go full time, and in that, it is honestly taking every portion of my day. Like I'm spending all day working on projects and doing content. So it's, you really have to enjoy it, because I think a lot of people have this facade of like, I'm going to do this creative art and it's going to be great. And I can just work on it for a couple hours and then do whatever I want because I'm going to make so much money.
This is a point that I really want to make, is that this is something that's going to come with a lot of experimentation and like experience from yourself. But I think it's a really good point to say that there will be things that you really like doing and things that you really don't like to work on. For example, I thought I was going to be a music major forever. Like I would say that I was going to go into music performance. I love music performance. It's very fun. And I said that for like my last 2 years of high school, I think that I was 100% going to do that. And as it started to become work, I didn't enjoy it. It's like there is a difference between having a hobby that you enjoy and having something that you work on. Yeah. And I think that you have to find something that you enjoy working on. And that's where you kind of took me by surprise whenever I got into film, because I didn't think of it as a hobby. I always thought of it as work, and I still enjoyed it even though it was work.
I had a similar experience with computer science. So like I wanted to go into game design, and I still find it incredibly fascinating. I still enjoy it on occasion, but once I started to, because I went to school and I went to DigiPen, and I did a class there where we basically we became a game, like you became a game team and you made a game. And I realized, I'm like, this is, it's cool and it's exciting, but I just didn't enjoy it. I found myself, I just didn't work that way. And it worried me. And I was like, I don't know if I can commit to this. And I don't know if this is what I want to do. And that never happens with film.
Yeah.
Never. And I'm like, that's a sign.
That's why we're obsessed.
Like, I need to do this.
To be honest with you, it's not to the full extent. I would say I'm pretty abnormal in that film has been like a very concurrent
driving
thing
force.
in my life
Yeah.
since I was pretty young. But that is not what I wanted to do at first, right at the beginning. I wanted to be an actor. That was something
me too. Yeah.
that was the main thing. I was like, I'm going to be an actor. And I didn't enjoy it. I try, you go on stage, and I could go on stage, I could perform, but and I learned a lot. Funny enough, I think I learned most of my performing things from YouTube. I learned how to perform through YouTube, not really on stage, which is funny enough. But like, I think that's such a good point. I think you phrased it so much better than that was what I was trying to say, is like, there's the work, enjoying the work and just enjoying your hobbies. And that's what you have to make sure you define and separate. And that's what's going to create that balance in life versus career. That's what's going to create it, is when you understand the difference between these two things. Because then once you leave high school, you're going to have a lot more clear of a path of what you're trying to do. So I think out of all of it, in terms of high school, I think the best advice that any of us could give, is that just try things and just try to figure out where you are at within those things in terms of stress level and what you can take. And that will prepare you a lot. So yeah, I want to talk about one more thing. That could be a longer topic, but it's something that I brought up with Harris Heller earlier. He mentioned this, and you may have seen this video, Zach. He talked about calculated risk. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, because I've always evaluated calculated risk as a real thing. I've always thought like, okay, you can look at something and you can kind of determine if, that's going to be a worthy endeavor. And now I realize that there's kind of a juxtaposition in calculated and risk that doesn't really make sense when you think about it. I want to hear you guys think about taking calculated risk. Is it even a thing, and how do you define that?
I would say that I think I understand the phrase, even if it is a juxtaposition, because it's like some things are obviously more risky than other things. And so it's like, whenever it comes down to I'm going to take a risk by say driving without a seatbelt, or I'm gonna, leave my my cereal on the counter for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, and it might get soggy or whatever. It's like those are two completely like different levels of risk. And so it's like one could end up with me dying and one can end up with a not very good cereal bowl.
I also think it's also about it's about the value that risk brings you.
True.
Right? Like I think that's what the calculation becomes is, okay, is this risk worth it? How much value does it give me for the consequence?
Yeah, I think a better way to put it is calculated risk also versus reward. Like calculated risk versus calculated reward. Like if the risk is low and the reward is high, you're obviously going to do it. But if the risk is high and the reward is low, why would you ever do that?
Yeah.
So I think that the whole calculation, quote unquote, point is figuring out whether the reward from the risk is worth the level of risk.
And I think I have a great example of that, and this is something I talked to you guys heavily about, was when I made that decision to not go to SCAD. So basically, bit of context, I was trying to figure out my options. I was trying to figure out whether I was going to attend SCAD or not, and it was kind of rough because I basically was very late to the, like, I was very late to apply. Not as late as him, but I was coming up to the wire, and so it was getting to the point where I'm trying to get scholarships, and I had my resume, my portfolio, my letter of recommendation. It was like I had everything there, and I just didn't end up getting the scholarship money that I was hoping for to really make the school worth it. So it was at the point where I had to decide, okay, what are the values of both options? I basically brought up to my option A was just say screw it and go to SCAD and just take the 4 years and take the 80,000 in debt or whatever that I end up with. Or I could just not go to the school and just, so the plan, because we already signed the lease, so my plan was, okay, I'm just going to go to Savannah and work. And it was just, to me, I basically just did the calculations. I said, okay, what do I get out of both options, and which one is more worth it, and what are the negatives out of both options? So, for example, going to SCAD, I would be able to get my degree, get an education, all that. But I'd get to do all the things, go to school. For me, the negatives were, I don't think I'm ready for school after this year, after quarantine, after COVID, all of this stuff. It's mentally destroyed my confidence in myself and my ability to really do classes. And I was very worried. I'm like, I don't know if, I can justify spending this much money and then maybe failing the first year and screwing myself over in the long run. So I realized I can just take the year and really use it to my advantage. I can really go and say, all right, I'm going to just go and do film. I'm going to work on my career, and I'm going to just use that opportunity because I'm also moving down with these guys. Yeah. This guy is going for free. So it's just kind of taking that benefit, right? Like I have the opportunity to go and work with you on films, and I get to work with, I get to do the same stuff. I get to go and work on films and meet these people. And I realized that the benefits of actually paying to go to SCAD started dwindling. Yeah. And I started to just see the rising price tag of what would happen if I said I'm going. Because if I went, I'd lock out every other option. I can't back out because I just threw $50,000 down the drain if I back out. So I have to commit to that money. I have to commit to that debt. And I said, I don't have to. I don't have to commit. Mm-hmm. I can go in and I can live life and work on film. And, it's a risk. It definitely is a risk because, hey, if next year doesn't really get me anywhere and I'm basically at a dead end job and I'm like, I don't find any, job in the film industry and I don't find any connections, I'm basically back to square one. it's unlikely because of our situation, but it still is a risk.
Yeah.
But I have other options. Like I could go and get a degree at VFS and go get a 1-year degree and be right in the spot where you guys are. But I need to pursue because the reason why I didn't want to do that this year was because I'd be leaving this opportunity on the door.
Yeah.
I'd just leave that opportunity, and that's a waste of money in my opinion. Like it's all on value. It's value on value. What is worth your time and what do you have to put your time into? And so that risk management, that calculation is all about, okay, and it was a huge calculation for me to figure out was like all of this different variables, what was worth the money.
Yeah.
And equally, they should both have the same outcome, but one leaves me not in debt.
Yeah. I mean, I think that people that have a passion in art, like any art, specifically have to go through that process.
Yeah.
Like very, very heavily. Because art is one of those passions and one of those jobs that you don't really have flexibility per se. Like if I go and get a degree in business, I can get a job at like literally basically any company. But if you go to get a degree in 2D illustration, like, yeah, there's a lot of jobs. Like, you know, there's video game companies might want you for concept art or like concept art also for like films. There's also just people that can just sell their artwork like by individual piece. You can make a Fiverr, like you can do a lot of different things. But it's like the amount of like concrete ability to have a job at easy access, like that's where that kind of gets difficult. Yeah. Like it's going to come into how can I turn art into a living? Like that is really what you have to be thinking about. And turning art into a living is going to come with those risk versus reward calculations because you really have to, you're on thin ice constantly, basically.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt going to the summer. I felt like on thin ice. And it was one of those things where it was like thinking about Zach, you know, taking the risk. And this is the other thing, you know, you really have to think about, you know, not only yourself. You really have to think about, because like I'm going into this with these guys. These guys are my partners. Ooh. And like Zach is taking huge risk. JT is taking huge risk. Like they're taking risks. And so, you know, I was very fortunate enough to get the scholarship that I got. And so I had to sit down and go, okay, I got this scholarship because of A, B, and C. That has left me with headroom to take bigger risks. And I think that's something you also want to take into account is like every opportunity leaves you with more headroom to make even bigger risks.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, this opportunity has allowed me to go, okay, I'm not going to work this summer. I'm going to work my ass off, though, in trying to make my career work. In return, having these guys, their career along with it work. And we can go in this together and, you know, have this as a financial backbone as we're making films.
Because whatever happens, you're always still working towards the same goal. Like you're always intending to go to the same place. Whether the opportunities that pop up take you in a different direction is, you know, you can't control that, but you need to just focus on what direction you are heading and put as much work towards that as you can. And whether the circumstances allow you to or not is just based on your circumstance. But no matter, you got to invest the resources that you have into reaching that goal. And whether it happens in 4 years or 2 or 5 or 10, you're going to get there. You just have to put in the work. You have to make the progress.
It's going to be like a spider web. Like there's going to be a million different branches, but there's always going to be a center that you're looking towards. And like there's going to be a bunch of different connections that could get you to that center. And you essentially have to figure out which one's going to get you there in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah. And I think one thing we're all kind of touching on and implying, and I think it's the biggest point I want to hit home, and it's kind of why I wanted to talk about balancing life and career, is not only in the fact of balancing it, but why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Why are you going into this career? And the harsh reality, the one that I had to learn, honestly, this year was you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
And I'll say it again, like that is something that you're not going to become a one-hit wonder. That one film you spend a couple days working on, it's probably not going to pop off.
You're probably not going to want to do it every second of every day, no
Yep.
matter how much you think you do.
Yep. You are going to have to work way more than you think you will have to. And not be discouraged by that. And put hours and hours out of something and then have it, not give you anything in return. And be okay with that. And you have to be okay with that and keep moving forward.
Consistency is everything.
That's what's going to define you in the long run into a higher chance of making it. And then you have to be okay with the fact that you may not make it. And that's where the risk comes in.
True.
So those are all things you have to be okay with, because if you're not okay with that, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
You just shouldn't be doing it. And if you're okay with it, guess what's going to happen? You're okay with that thing, that risk, then you're going to feel a lot more comfortable doing what you're doing. And in return, your content is probably going to be much better because you are comfortable doing that content. That's what you have to kind of go through. And if you're in high school right now, don't stress about that too much again, but really as you get older, as you think it's becoming more and more of a realistic career option, you want to start considering those things and really sit down and think about it. Really, really give it the time it deserves.
Yeah. I mean, even just also keep that in mind. You may we all at some point felt like we had no idea which direction we were going.
Yeah.
Like for us, it only truly hit that we were going into this career my junior and your senior year.
Yeah, I was already out 1 year.
Yeah, you were out. Go away. No, but we really only knew that once we kind of started hitting that high spell of, we started making film after film, meeting people. He got into SCAD. There was all these things that happened and opportunities that we just kept taking. We got these opportunities and we took them. We didn't want to make 6 films in literally 6 months.
Yeah.
We didn't have that plan, but we made one film and that spiraled us into just kind of making more ones. And there was some other opportunities that came up. We made another one and we made 6 films. A few of them did really well. They got us other opportunities that we then capitalized on. And eventually he got a full ride to SCAD. And it was just that moment where we were like, okay, this might be a career. It wasn't even okay, we're in it. We're good. We're done. This is a potential. This has potential that we now can put more risk into because now we can start risking a little more because, hey, we started to see people notice our work. And so we said, okay, we can start doing a little more. And that was Blinded. We started doing more and more and more. And it was just, it's going, and that's why we're just going to keep driving ourselves. We're still not, honestly, in terms of internet fame or internet success or metric success, something that you can measure in any sort of number, we have no success. We really haven't, but we've made progress.
Yeah.
And I think the only big success is SCAD, your scholarship. That's the only noticeable, honestly, that's the only bump in our success graph.
Yeah.
And I think, but hey, we've still seen improvement mentally. Our personal improvement has kept going up. And so we are taking that as a win, and we're just going to keep rolling with that momentum, even though, hey, we haven't made any major money from this. We haven't really made, major following from this, but you have to accept that. We have to say it's going to happen. It might happen or something else might happen, but you are feeling the success, in yourself. You're feeling that personal success. So you keep going with it. You don't stop.
Yeah.
Just because you don't see your view count go up a little bit more.
You work to improve yourself, not to get a reward out of it.
As long as you can feel, as long as there's a goal at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You work to improve yourself.
Yep.
If you have that goal, you have that like end game to reach. That's where you're heading.
Yeah. And don't feel discouraged by that. Don't feel discouraged by, feeling a little bit like of pressure because this should put a little bit of pressure. And that's kind of like, that's like a hard thing. And I want to put that out there because I felt that a month or two ago. Like I felt the pressure and I was like, oh my God, like I felt it. And it was the first time.
There's still a bit of that now.
Oh yeah. And the pressure's still on. Like the pressure's still on, but the difference is I confronted the pressure and went, okay,
Fight me.
Fight me.
fight me.
Throw up those hands.
I'm okay with the pressure. I've blinded onset. That's the definition of pressure. So I can take it. And I can move forward with it. So yeah, don't let that discourage you. Just kind of see where you're at in life and keep on evaluating that. And you'll be good to go.
You win.
You win. Good job.
Oh God.
Well, I think it's going to wrap up this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we want to do our ending segment again. We want movie recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's on. I'm gonna give it to you, Zach. You recommend.
I don't have a new one right now.
You don't have a new one. JT, recommend a movie.
Twisted.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Okay, movie recommendation. So I can't talk about this. I had these two watch recently a parody musical called Twisted, a untold tale of a royal vizier, and something like that. And it has to be one of the funniest but most like actual thought provoking shit posts I have ever seen. And that's what it is. It's
Like-
a musical shit post.
Like as a writer too of like a creator of characters, like that is such an interesting show to watch.
it is.
It's honestly the smartest show I have ever seen.
Can't you watch it on YouTube?
It is
Yep,
so
it's free
yeah,
on
it is
YouTube.
free on YouTube. It will be in the show notes if you just I think it's like 2 hours, 100%
Watch
worth
it.
the watch.
It's definitely vulgar, rated R.
Yes. Don't, if you don't watch it with your parents if they're not comfortable with that. If they are, watch it with them because it'd be very funny. But it it is I cannot recommend it enough. It's so good. Yeah, but I think that wraps up our topic pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quickly before we go, I'd like to give a shout out to our community on Discord. I'd like to give a shout out to our social media. If you want to go check that out, all of the links are in the show notes. Go check out our Patreon. We just finished finalizing it and setting it up, so it is all ready to go. If you feel like you want to support us and keep this podcast going, we'd love to see you there. We're going to be posting many different behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of stuff on the Patreon, a lot of
other
new content for you guys to
rewards
check out.
there.
You'll get to see what happens before we record these, which
And
is
after.
a fantastical time.
Yeah,
Good times.
it's exciting. But yeah, I think that wraps it up.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning into the podcast, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye bye.